We're joined by Republican political strategist and former White House counselor for George W. Bush, Ed Gillespie. Good to see you, Ed.
Good to be back. Thank you.
Romney won Ohio by the narrowest of margins. Santorum scored impressive wins in Tennessee, Oklahoma, and in North Dakota's caucuses. Alabama and Mississippi are coming up next week. Santorum says Romney is going to have a tough time in the South. Do you agree with that? And if so, why?
Well, if you look at the pattern from last night, and Georgia in particular, Governor Romney didn't fare as well there, obviously, as he did in other parts of the country. But I think it's going to be a vigorous contest in Alabama and Mississippi, which are the next states. I think Speaker Gingrich has his eye, obviously, on those two states, having won Georgia. And this is a very tough primary, a very contested one. And whomever emerges at the end of the day as our nominee for president is going to be a tested candidate who can take on Barack Obama in the general election.
With Romney once all but the presumptive nominee, does it look as though Santorum can pull it off considering his tremendous financial disadvantage?
Well, if you look at the delegates and how they're adding up, the math clearly favors Governor Romney, whom I voted for, by the way, in the Virginia primary yesterday. And but Rick Santorum is, waging a very strong campaign and making a very solid appeal to a lot of blue-collar voters and a lot of social conservatives. I think at the end of the day, whomever is the nominee is going to unify all of those conservatives behind himself, and I think that'll be a good thing going into November against President Obama.
What is Mitt Romney's biggest problem sealing the deal with conservatives?
Well, I think he's seen as not as vocally conservative, doesn't have the record that Rick Santorum does, certainly on social issues. And, the appeal to them is pretty direct from Rick Santorum. Again, I think at the end of the day, if Governor Romney's the nominee, they'll rally to Governor Romney because there's no more liberal on social issues than Barack Obama. And Governor Romney's had a record in Massachusetts of supporting traditional marriage and opposing government sanction of same-sex marriage. The Massachusetts Right to Life Committee is very favorable toward him from his time as governor. So I think he'll be able to appeal to those social conservatives if he's the nominee and taking the fight to Barack Obama.
What's the issue evangelical Christians have with Mitt Romney?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it's an issue with Mitt Romney so much as a preference for other candidates in the field. Each candidate has an appeal to a certain segment of the Republican Party electorate. You can see that in the exit polls. And so I'm not sure if it's a problem with Governor Romney so much as it is a preference for one of the other candidates. That's the nature of a four-way contest.
A new Rasmussen poll shows more likely voters view Romney unfavorably than favorably. Is this problematic for him if he winds up running against Obama?
Well, I think that's a reflection of a lot of this tough primary, a lot of the negative ads and the attacks. I'm sure everyone's negatives have gone up in the course of this primary. I don't know that permanent damage has been done here. I don't think it has. I think that this is a tough fight with Republican on Republican violence. But once there's a clear nominee and it's a clear choice between the Republican nominee, who I do believe is likely to be Governor Romney at this point, and President Obama, and the clear contrasts in his record versus what the Republican nominee is running on, I think you'll see a change dynamic almost overnight.
The Tea Party as a whole has not been very supportive of Romney, but Tea Partiers split the vote in Ohio. What happened there?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm glad the Tea Party voters are participating in our process. I think that's a good thing for us as a party. I think it's making us a bigger majority. But again, I think Tea Party voters, they may be resonating, or Rick Santorum's message, Newt Gingrich's message, Ron Paul's message may be resonating more strongly, or seems to be resonating more strongly with self-identified Tea Party voters than Governor Romney's message is. But again, if that choice is not between Rick Santorum or Governor Romney, but Governor Romney or Barack Obama, I think those Tea Party voters, would have a different view.
As expected, Newt Gingrich had a big win in the state he represented in Congress, Georgia, but his only other victory to date was in South Carolina. Does he realistically have even a remote chance of winning?
Well, again, looking at the numbers and seeing the path for Newt Gingrich to get a majority of the delegates, it's hard to see it, but that's for Newt Gingrich to decide. And again, he's got some favorable territory coming up now. You noted South Carolina, Georgia, southern states, and Alabama and Mississippi are next on the primary calendar. So I can understand why Newt Gingrich would want to stay in and campaign vigorously in those two states and see how he does and then see what it looks like going forward.
But what about Santorum's claim that if Gingrich were not in the race, not splitting the conservative vote, that he, Santorum, could beat Romney?
You know, I just don't know, Ashley. It's all, these are all theoretical assertions. Newt Gingrich might make the case that if Rick Santorum weren't in the race, he would be the one who would galvanize those votes. And Governor Romney would say they might, split three ways amongst the three remaining candidates. It's speculation, and it's just hard to know. Voters, they make up their own minds, and predicting voter behavior, I have found, is always pretty risky business.
But you feel pretty confident, I take it, that Republicans in the end will coalesce and they will make Obama the issue in this campaign?
I do. I believe that President Obama's record in terms of government management of our economy, the failed stimulus bill, the mountains of debt that he has racked up, the invasive health care bill, the Obamacare bill that is clearly now, as people see with the Catholic Church and other religious institutions and the infringements on religious freedoms, his weak foreign policy. I think that a president running for re-election faces a referendum, and this will be a referendum on President Obama's failed leadership and his failed policies. And again, whoever is the Republican nominee is going to have a very strong case to make against this president. And I think he's going to be running in a very difficult economic environment. I know there's a lot of talk about things getting better, and maybe they are getting marginally better. I'm glad to see Americans starting to find work again, but we have 3 to 5 million Americans who have left the labor force since President Obama took office. If they begin to come back in looking for jobs, the unemployment rate is likely to stay above 8% through November, and that's a tough environment for an incumbent president to get reelected in.
Ed Gillespie, as always, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashley, for having me. Appreciate you taking some time.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.